Once upon a time, in a faraway kingdom, there lived a beautiful princess named Snow White. Her skin was as white as snow, her lips as red as blood, and her hair as black as ebony. She was kind and gentle, loved by all who knew her. Unfortunately, her stepmother, the queen, was jealous of Snow White's beauty. The queen owned a magical mirror to which she would often ask, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The mirror would always reply, "You, my queen, are the fairest of them all." However, as Snow White grew older, her beauty surpassed that of the queen. One day, when the queen asked her mirror, it replied, "Snow White is the fairest of them all," consumed with jealousy and rage. The queen ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the forest and kill her. The queen demanded that the huntsman return with Snow White's heart as proof of her death. The huntsman, however, couldn't bring himself to harm the innocent princess. Instead, he told her to run far away and never return. Snow White fled into the depths of the forest. As she wandered through the woods, Snow White came upon a small cottage. Curious, she knocked on the door, but no one answered. She entered and found the cottage to be very small and cluttered. It belonged to 7 dwarfs who worked in a nearby mine. Exhausted from her ordeal, Snow White fell asleep on one of the beds. When the dwarfs returned home, they were surprised to find Snow White asleep in their cottage. She awoke and told them her story. The kind-hearted dwarfs took pity on her and invited her to stay with them. In return, Snow White helped with the household chores. Meanwhile, the queen discovered that Snow White was still alive. Enraged, she devised a plan to kill her. She disguised herself as an old peddler woman and visited the dwarf's cottage while they were away. The queen offered Snow White a poisoned apple. Unaware of the danger, Snow White took a bite and immediately fell into a deep, death-like sleep. When the dwarfs returned, they found Snow White lying lifeless on the ground. Heartbroken, they placed her in a glass coffin in the forest. They kept watch over her day and night, hoping she would somehow awaken. One day, a prince from a neighboring kingdom passed by and saw Snow White in the coffin. Struck by her beauty, he lifted the glass lid and kissed her. Miraculously, Snow White woke up. The dwarfs and the prince rejoiced. The prince asked Snow White to marry him, and she happily agreed. The wicked queen, upon learning of Snow White's survival and impending marriage, was so consumed with anger that she perished in her own rage. Snow White and the prince were married in a grand celebration and lived happily ever after, while the 7 dwarfs continued to live in their cottage. Knowing they had played a part in the princess's happiness, and so, Snow White and the 7 dwarfs lived happily ever after, their bond and bravery celebrated in the kingdom for generations to come.